The thing that I really wanted to bring up, though, is the question, well, we took evidence from a bus driver, and I've subsequently been approached by other bus drivers, and the impression that I get very strongly is that they don't seem, it's not that they're not on board with the Vision Zero, it's just that it appears to be a conversation that's happening not in their garage, not in their cab, not in their lives, and there appear to be, people like us sitting in rooms like this talking about Vision Zero, perhaps people at your level talking about Vision Zero, but then when you talk about what is actually going on in the, day-to-day, hour-by-hour activity of somebody driving a bus along our roads, it doesn't seem to be reaching them. They don't understand how it's supposed to impact on them. So I don't know whether you're aware of the evidence that we took and whether you've thought about that since. But how do you actually get that message, and not just a message, but behaviour differences to that operational level?
Sure. Well, I haven't seen the specific bits of evidence to which you referred. I'd welcome that. Actually, it would be good for me to have a look at that if you wouldn't mind furnishing it to me. But what I can say is I can't speak for every bus driver, but we do, through our contractors and our partners, our business partners on the bus side, we do talk to bus operators and involve bus operators in vision safety initiatives. And the reason I can say that with certainty is I've participated in one. I went to Shepherd's Bush garage not so long ago, and I sat in with a session of bus operators who were undertaking an exercise on Vision Zero initiatives, including the road environment and hazards to look out for. And literally, we were using 3D vision, virtual reality headsets, where you watched a video and you were looking for specific risks and anticipating what road users and pedestrians might do. And then there was quite a healthy debate after that about the relevance of what we've been doing in terms of vehicle design, road design, regulations, and the bus operators by and large were pretty well informed. Now I get that was one microcosm, that was one garage, but those debates and that information do go on.
I feel confident in agreeing with you that the debates go on. The sense that I have picked up, though, as a new Assembly member, so this may be wrong, but the sense that I get is that TfL, so you have this sort of three-stage, you've got the TfL, stroke us here in City Hall, and then you've got the bus operators, and then you've got the bus drivers. And there seems to be almost a Chinese wall somewhere in there. It seems to be what's happening. And I don't know that TfL, when there's a problem, seem to be quite happy to point to the bus operator and say, well, it's the bus operator's job to operate the bus network safely and take a slightly hands-off approach. And then when I speak to bus drivers, if I could put it diplomatically, they think that the bus operators are mainly concerned with timetables and profitability, and they're not so concerned about safety. So I suppose my question is, how do you join that up end to end? Does TfL, through the contracts that it agrees with the bus operators, does it give safety as much priority as bus operator or the bus controller on the radio to the driver, telling them to speed up, not so much telling them to be safe, for example? So how does TfL use its powers in setting the contracts with bus operators to actually take responsibility for it? Because I do get the sense that I don't think that, I'm not sure that happens.
Okay. The TfL responsibility is to set the policy, to set the safety framework. So we set out overall what these safety standards are that are to be achieved, and the policy objectives that collectively we are to achieve. And that is a factor contained specifically and explicitly contained within the tendering arrangement and the contracting arrangement that we deploy. In other words, you will not win a franchise or win a concession if you do not sign up to participating in and adhering to that safety framework. So we oversee that. So we're not passive to that. We don't, contrary to what you may have been told, just delegate policy and framework to the operators. On the contrary, we stipulate that to the operators. But you made the point about it's the contractors, or the impression given is that we see it as the bus operators' responsibility to operate their buses safely. Absolutely it is. They are best placed to do that. They are the controlling minds at the local depots in terms of interaction with their operators, discipline of their operators, performance management of their operators, training of their operators. But I stress that it has to be done within an overall framework that we set.
So bus driver fatigue, for example, fatigue management is obviously a very important part of that, making sure that the shift patterns, for example, don't induce fatigue. How much involvement does TfL have in firstly setting sort of industry best practice for bus operators to adhere to, and secondly, to checking whether that actually happens?
Yeah. So again, we set the framework. TfL sets the framework, and we do that not just by picking arbitrary figures. We've commissioned independent research on the health risks to bus drivers across the industry. So not specific to a particular operator, but across the industry. Again, using an evidence-based approach. So we've done a study with academia on what are the critical factors behind bus driver fatigue, things like circadian rhythms, and making sure that the shifts don't, the shift patterns don't contribute to that fatigue. And the shifts themselves are structured in such a way so as to minimize fatigue. There's a lot of science around this. Plus, we make sure that there is proactive learning between bus operators. So if one bus operator, for example, has some sort of safety-related incident that might be transferable, it's not a one-off, might be transferable to one of the other operators, again, we share that. We have a bus safety program. We've led on what's called the Health and Wellbeing Innovation Challenge jointly with bus operators, and we will be rolling out bus fatigue technology, detection technology, which looks at your eyes to see if there's evidence of fatigue, and that will be rolled out to 500 buses by the end of 2022. So my point is, again, we set the framework, we set the standards, we set the policies, and we, via the contracts, we make sure that the various contractors comply with those. But it's a two-way thing. Equally, if a contractor has good practice, best practice, a lot of them are internationals that we can learn from and then share to the other contractors. We're very much alive to that.
So in terms of, apologies, Chair, my very final question then. So in terms of this fatigue management with bus drivers, because I think what you've said is not that different from what I've said. Perhaps you've couched it in less accusatory language, which is fair enough. But it does feel as if we're still in a position whereby if individual bus drivers feel that their operator isn't taking fatigue seriously, or if the shift management patterns that they're implementing aren't say comparable with what the railway industry would do, which is another area where this comes up a lot. What actual role does TfL take, or in your view, could or should they take, to actually impose on operators, let's say by the contract, that they do actually live up to that best practice and don't just have, let's say, a conversation about it, which everybody then leaves the room and carries on doing what they were doing before?
Well, our director of buses has regular dialogue both with the collective of the various bus entities, but also with them on a bilateral basis with individual bus companies, at which safety is an agenda item. So we would look at any anonymous reports that have been sent to us. We would look at the root causes of any incidents that had occurred. We will look at data in terms of the numbers of safety incidents or accidents to customers or to members of staff that have occurred. So there's quite the challenge process to make sure that operators aren't just giving us lip service, but that are actively fulfilling the terms of their contracts and taking a proactive approach to safety. So that dialogue does go on.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Lovely, thank you. I think that might be something coming out in our Vision Zero letter in due course. Assembly Member